I want to say, first of all, this is the first of many conversations we will be having. There will be no decisions made tonight, no legislation is happening. This is really an opportunity to have a larger conversation about what people want to see in the park, what they do not want to see in the park. I'm really excited. We have a great cast of folks who will help begin the conversation. We have Susan Daniels with the Norwood Historical Society. We have Lieutenant Thomas with the Norwood Police Department, Michael Gabbard with the Norwood Rec, and Emily Franzen, Councilwoman Emily Franzen, will be talking about the 2022 Park Survey. So we're going to talk briefly about all of those things. If you haven't had an opportunity, before you leave, I would love for people to add to the idea boards. That's all these are ideas. Nothing is happening just because you put splash pad doesn't mean a splash pad's going to be there. It means that's a fantastic idea. Let's look and see if we can find the finances, where would we put it, what would we look like. So again, the beginning of lots and lots and lots of conversations. After the evening concludes, I'll be gathering all the information and putting it in a cohesive form and sharing it back to council as well as the residents. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions about that. After the presentations, we'll be having some Q&A, and then if you would like to, again, add to the idea board, we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to have their voice heard. We also want to make sure we are all Norwoodians. We all want to be respectful and kind, and that I expect that wouldn't be a problem here this evening. And we are also going to be leaving, shutting down at 8:30, just because I want to be respectful of those with small children and bedtimes, and I'm old, I need to go to bed too as well. So I'm going to start off with the one who needs no introduction, but Susan Daniels with the Norwood Historical Society.
Yeah. Okay. I don't like to look at my mouth on this neck. Anyway, so when I was asked to provide the history, of course, I was like, sure. Oh wait, when?
Susan,
so yeah, I was
Huh? Is the mic turned on?
It's blue.
Alright. Reject.
Hey, come close.
The speaker turned on.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I guess it's not.
That dirty sound.
Yeah.
I thought it sounded weird. Okay. Anyways, let's, what did I say? Oh yeah. So when I was asked to provide the historical facts on the whole area, park, safety lane, what we're all familiar with, I was like, sure. And so needless to say, this was a rush because to put it into a presentation definitely takes time. I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning last night, and then some this morning, and then right before here. So yeah, so we do have a lot of stuff, a lot of artifacts and pictures and just documentation on both Victory, Safety Lane, and the Market House. So putting it all together into a consolidated presentation for 20 minutes is a little difficult. So other than that, I can go on and on and on for, good 8 hours. But I gotta go to bed too. All right, so what I'm gonna do is, in case anyone doesn't, or not, they're not familiar with me, that is my contact information. I do run our Facebook page. We do have an email address, and then, of course, our website. Okay, so I thought let's do this in chronological order. Let's go in by years. So if we were to go back to 1904, let's go to the Sanborn maps. See that little house in the middle? That is the whole area of the block, basically from Walter to Mills to Montgomery Road. Okay, that's the safety lane. That's the park. That's the whole park. So that house in the middle was actually owned by L.C. Hopkins. Last name sound familiar? Hopkins? He was also elected president of the Town Hall Association prior to Norwood becoming incorporated as a village in 1988. He was also responsible for obtaining plans for construction of our town hall, which ended up on the corner of Elm and Montgomery. So, fun fact is that Hopkins Avenue was named after this gentleman, as many other streets were. So if you were to develop something in Norwood, you got a street named after you. Pretty cool. Yeah? So now we're gonna fast forward just a few years, okay? What we are all familiar with is the Market House, okay? In the early century, a lot of development was not fully done yet in Norwood. So just like that previous slide showed one house on a whole block, and there was like another house on the corner. Well, a lot of houses were not built at that time. So that means a lot of grocery stores were not built at that time. So a lot of people know like these little corner markets, so which was helpful, more into the 30s and 40s, where you just go down to your street and there's a corner market, little grocery store, and get some food, okay? But in 1906, a little bit more difficult. I mean, there was some grocery stores, of course, but the need for more of a consolidated one-stop shop was needed. Okay, so at this point in Norwood, not fully populated and undeveloped, with some vacant land, ready for development and some farming still in the play, many corner grocery stores that became familiar with past decades, there was a need for markets that local farmers could sell. So there was just a few farms still floating around in Norwood, very small at this time. In 1906, the Norwood Women's Federation Club organized a campaign for the proposition of a market house. So this market house was also in the same resemblance to Findlay Market as we know it today. The market house, let's see, would provide a provisional market close to home and was needed.
Yeah, that'd be mine. Sorry.
That's okay. Happens. The Board of Public Service purchased the land right where Elsie Hopkins' house was. A $35,000 bond was issued, and this was including to purchase the land and to develop a structure. It was voted by the citizens in March of 1907. Okay, Norwood Council passed a resolution to build the market house for no more than $16,000, so it would cost $16,000 to build the actual structure itself. At the corner of Mills and Montgomery, which was also called Main. In today's cost, $16,000 would be equivalent to over $555,000. So it was a lot. Remember this time in 1907, women were not allowed to vote in America. Yet they were the driving force behind a lot of projects in Norwood, such as the town hall and now the market house. So it, of course, didn't stop them. Most of their husbands worked for the city, and so, of course, you got to please your wife, who was also part of these campaigns and organizations, and they spoke and they won. So they did a lot of initiatives for Norwood, of course. In 1907, the land was purchased to start construction of the market house. The market house was almost fully constructed in 1909, with the exception of the roof, because the roof contractor demanded a little bit more money, so a lawsuit had to take place, of course, and then it was dissolved. So he just wanted $1,000 more, but it actually was equivalent to $34,000 today. So at that time, a lot was right on him. So this officially was constructed in 1909. The market house was operated by Joseph Levingood. He was also known as the market master. Grocers would set up booths on either side of the aisles, running down the length of the building. So again, similar to Findlay Market, and then you'd have the vendors, multiple vendors. And at night, the market house was also a host to churches. So the Norwood Protestant churches would hold services in the summertime. There was like a platform outside the wall, and then they would set up chairs so it'd be easier for the preachers to speak outside. And then they had like little gardens, strung up lights, made a little pretty. But I wasn't there to witness that. Clearly. Okay. This is what the market house looked like completed. I probably should have backed that up a little better or quicker, but this is what I've already mentioned about the grocers and the booth and Joseph Levingood. So yeah, this is what it looked like today, or 1909, sorry. Plaza Air Dome. I wanted to give you more of an overlook of not just the block on Mills and Montgomery, but across the street. There's a lot happening in Norwood, of course. So between and I'm trying to give you like a better example. So if you see that house in the middle, that was the house where Elsie lived in, okay? It was 1904, so that was part of the 1904 Sanborn map. So the new structures with the air dome, those other houses on the three down below, and of course now the market house. Okay, this was a 1917 Sanborn maps. We kind of meshed both together so you can kind of get a feel for how both were laid out. Well, we ended up moving Elsie Hopkins' house over across the street. And yes, you can move houses physically back then. Okay. Horses, if they had cars, I mean, everything that they could do. They actually moved a house, and they did multiple houses in Norwood. They moved them across the streets. Okay, it's not an air dome. What's an air dome? Okay, you're probably thinking of an actual dome structure, but it wasn't. It was an actual open air outdoor movie theater. And this was very popular, not just in Norwood, but in other cities across America. Okay, so these air domes would film silent movies, okay? Trying to get a picture, and I totally forgot of an example of an air dome. But if you see the air dome there, you can see how long it was. So the movie theater, the screen, sorry, would be in the middle, okay? People would be in their wooden chairs, and the floor was made up of wood chips. It's not like it was concrete or, tile or anything like that. The whole perimeter of the dome was a fence, so it's kind of like you're like on this fork with no ceiling, but a movie screen. Now on the other side of that movie screen would either be a piano or an orchestra, because I mean they pretty much made it fancy, basically. But these silent movies, they were popular and was first introduced in America in 1894, 1895, and then it kind of faded out as, well, I guess Hollywood figured out how to do sound with their movies. So that was usually around the late 20s. And then you can watch a silent movie for 15 cents. Pretty good deal. And then Norwood had 3 domes, in addition to our indoor movie theaters that a lot of us were familiar with as well. Did you know that, I'm on the wrong page. Okay. We're kind of going forward a little bit. Now, 1912 to 1913. Why do we have a picture of City Hall? Well, in 1912, right when the existing town hall structure, that of course is on Elm in Montgomery, not the one we know of today, but it was made of wood. It was about the size of a house. It had a tower, a little old, and a bigger version was needed, a little bit more sturdier. And by this time, like masonry structures were more popular, similar to the library. Okay. So in 1912, the Norwood voters approved a $90,000 bond needed to construct a larger municipal building. The current structure at the time was made of wood and smaller. So the proposed structure that was much larger would be masonry. However, the land that was donated, where the current City Hall is now, on Elm and Montgomery, was donated by George Heffer in 1881. However, Norwood was being questioned as to how clean the title was. There was some verbiage in the title that some feared that his descendants would claim back the land. So there was half Norwood being fearful, half Norwood saying, okay, let's just move forward. We need a new structure. We'll just rebuild there. So while they're researching to figure out if they got a good title, they needed an alternative location. Where do we go? Let's go by the market house, because now we have land, okay? So as you can see, this is an actual pamphlet, and the current proposals on the left side and right side, in this pamphlet, the structures are very similar to our current city hall today, okay? This is made of masonry, so by then they already had a picture idea of the design, they just couldn't figure out where. Okay, so it was basically the city trying to reassure the citizens, hey, we do have a clean title, we're okay to proceed on Elm. Some others say, no, we don't, we need to move to Mills. So, and if that did happen, then Elm would have became a park. Like flip-flop, okay? So in this pamphlet, the picture on the left reads, a $90,000 building would appear on Main and Mills City Park. By then it was called Mills City Park. Okay? The other city parks were also just whatever street that was on, City Park. Pretty fancy. And it showed a business frontage and the trees preserved. So it brought more of the building in front, more of a business look, okay? Picture 2 reads, another $90,000 building on the Main and Mills City Park property, showing a park frontage and trees preserved. So this was more park friendly. So battle, of course, they figured out that we do have a clean title, because now we're on Elm, we're staying on Elm. But that was definitely a battle that was, questioned in 1912 and 1913, that they had to rectify and provide a quick alternative solution, and then turns out we were fine. So then, of course, our new city hall was built right after that. Okay, so here's more of the pamphlet. People vote no, vote yes, this is what we think. It's kind of an interesting, popular year. Okay, the first memorial structure in Norwood was actually in 1921. So it was a 12-foot marble structure with a bronze figure of victory. It was designed by Raymond Averill Porter, who was a sculptor. And it included names of 40 Gold Star Norwood men who served in France during World War I. The structure was accepted by our mayor, Mayor Louis Nolte. This is 4 Acre, named last name somewhere. Another famous name after a street. She was a former resident of Norwood, and she was also the state chairman of the National Victory Memorial Building Association. So there was a national association, and then they had state chapters. People more local represented. So she urged citizens to aid the campaign to funds and place blue and gold stars in the market house. So she wanted additional names in the market house of them made out of blue and gold star. So the dedication exercises were preceded by a parade, of course, because we love our parades, on the Norwood streets, which included the American Legion and other patriotic, fraternal, and civic organizations of Norwood. Also popular in that year was our swimming pool, that also was constructed in 1921. And they even thought about adding a pool there right next to the market house, even back to 1913. So it was a long time coming. They wanted a pool. They didn't have air conditioning. Norwood Spring Festival. I don't know if you guys have heard. After reading this and kind of diving more into it, I think this was the very beginning of Summer Days, but just in a different format. In cooler colors. So the Spring Festival began in 1923 and was held at the park. Okay. The festival was put together by the Norwood Retail Merchants Association. What is that? What is that? Wait. Oh, okay. I get distracted. It's like squirrel. Okay, what was that? So the Norwood Retail Merchants Association. That was like the version of the Chamber of Commerce. Okay. Festival's activities included music and even a car show. So even back then, they thought about cars. Okay. The festival pamphlet, as you can see here, stated that the festival has been so arranged as to appeal to the entire family. There will be attractions for the little tots, little kids, and heaps of things to arouse and hold the entire interest of grown-ups. Nothing of, and this is them talking, not me, nothing of an obscene nature has been permitted upon festival grounds in the management of the festival plans to keep the function on a high plane, which so characterized the events of the last year. Quote unquote, sideshows, this is in the pamphlet, and gambling devices, don't know how they had some sort of device for gambling, have not been tabooed at the Spring Festival, but will not be tolerated. So I guess there are some sideshows of whatever happening in the previous 3 years.
Probably at the circus.
Thus, the person will feel free to attend the festival and take his family and friends with perfect assurances of seeing and hearing only the best. So even back then, they had a little bit of trouble. But still trying to figure out what this gambling device is in 1985. Okay. We had other events at Victory. Okay. And then she wanted to clarify. Yeah, so the Spring Festival, that was the first time that it was actually called Victory. No, I'm sorry, 1921. Just so you guys know, for record, the first time it was La Jolla Park was called Victory. Before that, it was Park Mills City Park. Okay, so fast forward, other events and changes. So this monument has kind of like changed throughout the decades. Okay, kind of had some different looks. So in this 1943, the monument changed with an additional 2 flags. Okay, on both sides of the monument. And it contained a lot more names. So you can still see the original monument structure in the middle. Black and white picture's kind of hard to see. Other events included the Community Christmas Crib. That was sponsored by the Norwood Kiwanis Club, and that picture was exampled in 1945. So the baby manger, real cows, right in front of the monument. I don't know about the cows, but hopefully they didn't stay long. Okay. So what about the market house? Okay. What happened to that? So as we know, swinging back to the market house, which didn't last long with its original purpose, and only because now Norwood is now slowly, organically growing, which means now there's grocery stores at every corner. So in this time, we're like, why do we need another one-stop shop when I can just go down my street to pick up what I need for groceries? And every city also dealt with this, it's a slowly change organically. And then all of a sudden, Burger King kind of snatched up some grocery stores and made a big supermarket, along with Albert's. Okay, so after the market house, then it was leased out. The city owns the building, and then it was leased out to a roller rink and a skating rink for a little while. Okay? And then it was rented out for the Norwood Safety Lane that majority are more familiar with today. And the safety lane was one of 2 locations in the county. The other location was in Cincinnati. The purpose of the safety lane was to provide quality checks to vehicles for over 4 decades. In 1940, it required residents to have their cars inspected twice a year, okay, paying a fee of 50 cents each time. In 1956, a total of 175,959 cars and trucks were inspected, and only 40,581 were rejected due to mechanical defects. The safety lane took into consideration the car's age. They tested the brakes and lights. And as you can see, they kind of made it like a drive-through. So the actual cars would drive through, and the guys would come up, kind of like a Jiffy Lube, they'd come to you, they'd work on your car, okay? Well, there would be another car inside, and there's plenty of room. There's probably room for three cars at least, depending on what your car was. Well, that made way for accidents, Oops, I just rear-ended somebody else that was in the safety lane. So multiple accidents actually happened inside the safety lane. So yeah. Due to the amount of cars and that the safety lane had, it was actually a nuisance to people that lived on Walter Avenue, people that lived on Mills Avenue, because there would be cars lined up and just waiting for their next to be in line. So a lot of the neighbors were not too happy with that, which could be mainly the purpose for the lane, for the road to be one lane today. Okay. The safety lane was closed in 1981, and then the building was leased to a boxing club, and then now is a storage for police and to have cars in there, stuff like that. Top secret. Kind of fast forward to 1958. Another change to the monument. Okay, this was a July 4th. It was a memorial, a marble shaft. So now the monument is now surrounded. Okay, bigger structure, more cleaner structure, with the bronze-winged Victorian and bronze plaques with the names of veterans who died in World War I, World War II, and the Korean conflict, and it was dedicated at Victory Park. In 1991, there was a rededication. Okay. The rededication was to honor the service, people participating in the Persian Gulf Desert Storm operation, and the newly refurbished monument. The refurbished monument in memory of Norwood's service. The people lost World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam. And this was rededicated by Mayor Joseph Senker, who was speaking. So as you can see, there was multiple rededications. And then, yeah. So what about summer days? Okay. I was baby. Okay, so summer days. In the 70s, the park did host a little bit of Summer Days events. Summer Days was a week-long celebration, as we know, and it was given by the Norwood Aesthetics and Cultural Committee following the Norwood Day Parade. Norwood there was a committee for everything, so if it sounded like a committee, it was a committee. This was a multiple-day celebration, included nighttime entertainment and music, an old-fashioned German beer garden, food, and dancing. Proceeds of the event helped pay for beautification of Victory, as well as other parks. And then the event was eventually moved to Waterworks in the 80s. There was ice cream socials. Let's see. Yeah, so it was moved to the Waterworks. Whoever remembers fancy beer buckets, people would get dollar beers. Okay? So I don't know how many beers were in them, but I can't imagine 2, 3, but apparently they were only $1. Every year the city would put new ones out, and they would change up the colors. So this was a 1980 Summer Days bucket. And of course, people drink, $7 beers. So, definitely different. Even at the time, Victory Park also needed cleaned up, and throughout the decades, there was not more pictures in this slideshow, but definitely the newspapers that I was researching showed a lot of interesting facts and articles about Victory being cleaned up by various groups and people. So, as you can see, this woman, if she saw this picture today, she'd probably remember wearing a latrine on her head, because that is what that is. So, pretty interesting. That was probably the funniest picture I've seen. So that is it in a nutshell. Any questions? Just kind of fast forward.
I have a question. With all due respect, just respecting the veterans that have given their life for us, I would think that it would be able to honor them in our historical society presentation if we were to refer to this particular site, the park that we're talking about, instead of referring to it as Victory Park. I may need to be corrected, but from what I understand, it is being referred to as the Victory Memorial Park. But in our presentation, we refer to it as Victory Park on a number of occasions, and I would just like to see the purpose or the name of the park throughout the presentation to give honor to those that the park was truly named after. So it's not so much of a question as more of a statement that just, given the history from as early as the early 1900s, and it states there Victory Park, but at some point it was changed to Victory Memorial Park. But yet in our presentation, as we can see there, it still says Victory Park. And for me, that's a little bit of an issue for me, that we name things as it is. And so if it is Victory Park, I'm fine with it. From what I understand, the park is called Victory Memorial Park. So that would be my only input there. I was a bit taken back to hear the park referred to as Victory Park, because then it just says it's just another space. But I believe Victory Memorial Park makes it more of a sanctuary, which has more of a deeper meaning to people. And I'm just one that things, certain names and what you call something or someone really has a big, big place with me.
Thank you for that suggestion. I would also just say that at this point in 1925, I believe it was called Victory Park. It was not yet called Victory Memorial Park. Does anyone have any other questions for Ms. Daniels? Yes.
The Norwood Historical Society, the different names of the deceased individuals on that, do they have a background and profile and history on that? On the individual people? Like a picture of them, maybe where they died at, what their service was, where they grew up? Does the Norwood Historical Society, which has been around for a century, you would think they along the way would have kept track of those names and the history of those individuals?
Yeah, so 1978 is when we were organized. Not nearly a century. So this was actually a project
That's the Legion's up there 100 years ago.
So only a few organizations still kind of lasted throughout the century, but the Historical Society, we were officially organized and formed in 1978 by local residents who was with the city, and a lot of stuff was dedicated in our archive room, which is here at the community center. It's filled with stuff, pictures, documents, artifacts, such as the buckets. Okay. So as a project that I did start, this was a couple years before COVID, and then keep in mind I do have 2 jobs, and so a lot of this stuff that I do on my free time is I have reached out to a lot of veterans. I have personally interviewed them. I've got their pictures. So the whole project is to do a book so that we can educate, dedicate, and honor the veterans. Even Civil War. I mean, I even did an interview where it was like a great-granddaughter. She had information on her ancestor who was in the Civil War and in Norwood. So that is the goal to get it finished. You know, the city of Reading did a book, and that took like 10 years to finish. So it is a very long process for sure. but it's something that will be completed, and then I will be going back to previous newspapers. So I do have like a lot of names and a lot of their information. So if I can't physically interview the actual veteran or their descendants, I can do my grandfathers, of course. So if I can't reach out to those individuals, then I'll always pull information from newspapers and just gather information that's already available for the public.
The Norwood Historical Society has a page listing the Civil War on. We keep trying to add more, so went to all the memorials and tried to put them in. We're trying to collect the newspaper articles. There's a lot for those too. So, one of our members, who's no longer a member, he was in the Gulf War. He wanted to do all that, but then he had a family and he couldn't do it. So, but it's not something we ignore. We recognize it.
And then to go back to Sunny's question about the whole name, as you can see, the name has changed throughout the century of the grounds, basically, the whole block. So even in the earlier stages, which I wanted to bring back to the Spring Festival, that it was mentioned as Victory Park, maybe they weren't as, but it did mention in the pamphlet that it was a memorial, but they still referred to it as Victory Park. So, I mean, every time I look at a newspaper, it was called something else. So that's where a lot of the differences kind of come into play. But yeah. Does anybody have any other questions? Yes.
Hey everybody, Jason here. Thank you, Susan, for doing this presentation. One, I'm terrified of public speaking, so I'm shaking right now a little bit. So thank you for standing in front of us and letting us all glare at you. Two, thank you for the bucket little note. My wife and I actually found one of those buckets in an antique store in Lebanon with the Norwood crest on it. I was like, oh, there's some history here. So
We never went to Norwood yet.
And my question, you may have said this, but I might have missed it, and I'm sorry if I did. How long did summer days run from, do you know, when they started? And you said like 80s, they moved?
So yeah, it kind of progressed. 70s, it was at Ronnie, Bill Briggs chime in.
No, I can't
You're gonna
remember.
remember more than I am.
I had too many of those buckets.
Basically, it was held at Victory, and then it was moved to Waterworks, and then it was eventually dissolved for the actual party, the event itself, as we still continue on with the parade. But this was like a multiple day event, party brigade, basically in June and July, or July, depending on the year. But yeah.
If I remember right, maybe someone could tell me, it seemed like it just started getting more expensive to have the summer days and the insurance and all that. So a lot of people that were involved just stopped lining up.
I was the treasurer of Summer Days from 1985 until it ended. I took that over from Meredith Dexter as the treasurer here in Norwood, who did it for years. We had Summer Days, a lot of them down at, it had already gone from Victory down to Waterworks by that time. And the reason it was moved down there was because of the damage to the park. And plus there was, more parking and they had the ball fields down lower and everything. So it was just a better situation for the celebration. Back then they had bounce house kind of things. They had stuff for kids. It was almost like a festival more than just a regular thing. We did that for several years, and then we started sponsoring we called it. It was held on Sherman Avenue. Taste of Norwood. We did that for 2 years. Finally, Joe Hochbein got elected mayor, and he got involved. Not involved from the outside. He got involved in the Norwood Summer Days, making promises to vendors and stuff that he had no authority to make. It just about bankrupted us. And that was the last time that Summer Days had a function, and that was in the early 90s. I remained treasurer of that until I think around 2010, 2012. And then the account just lay dormant and drew interest. And by the time I closed the account and we took that money and split it into three things, we donated a third of it to Norwood's American Legion, a third to the Norwood Historical Society, and a third to, what was the third one? Building we're sitting there, Norwood Seniors. But, and that, you know, when we closed out that account, that was completely the end of the summer days. It was a great function. It was well attended. There were some problems with the alcohol, but, you know, nothing that the Norwood police weren't right on top of, and so it really didn't spoil the times of other folks. But they were good days. But it's gone for a reason.
I would like to give time, because I want to move along. We do have Emily Franson, Councilman Emily Franson, who's going to go over the 2022 survey results. So if you have any other questions for Susan, if we could hold those off, if we have more time at the end. Is it up on there?
Here, but I also here. We need that.
Oh, couldn't you email it to Susan? What? Sorry.
What? Can I email it? Can you go back?
Well, who's getting the tech loaded up? Let me invite Lieutenant Thomas to come speak.
So, I'm Lieutenant Thomas with Norwood Police Department. I'm currently in charge of our training division. I'm here to kind of give you a brief overview of where our stance is with any changes made to the park and any changes made to the legality of alcohol in the park. I do have some stats for you, some statistics that you may be interested in. In the last 2 years, since January of 2022, only 28 runs to the park have made any kind of paper for us, any kind of arrest, report, anything like that. We have done over 470 directed patrols on the park with the intent and the goal of making sure that the park is a safe park for people to be in, and making sure the park is kept as best we can from folks that don't appreciate the park and that don't respect the park. Folks that do illegal activities in the park, folks that litter in the park, things like that. People that make the park not appealing to be in. Whether it be their littering or other criminal activities that they might be doing. Of those 28 offense reports, 19 of them were for open containers, 2 of them were for disorderly conduct, 2 for criminal trespass, 2 for littering, 2 for public indecency, 1 for an aided case, and 1 for obstruction. So far, we have, especially over the last 2 to 3 years, we've made a tremendous effort to try to make sure that we're patrolling the park, and all the parks really. Our guys, whether it's an official directed patrol where they're instructed to go check on the parks, or whether it's just during the course of their daily duties, it's one of the things that we focus on. Like coming through this department as a patrolman, as a supervisor, as a sergeant, now as a lieutenant, it's been made clear very, very early on in your career, the parks are important to the city, and you are to check on them, whether it's directed or not. So with that being said, when it comes to Victory Park, and in this case, the idea of allowing permits for alcohol and things like that, our stance right now is neutral. Obviously, we don't have a personal opinion on it. We're going to enforce the laws as they're written. If the law changes and allows permits for alcohol in the park, we're going to enforce it the way it's written. We're also going to enforce outside the park. When it comes to anything that might be going on, any events, there won't be open containers going out onto the sidewalks, out in the public streets, going across the street, going down the street, anything like that. If the event has a designated area where folks are allowed to drink, that's where they're allowed to drink. If they go outside that designated area, it's across the board, it's gonna be an open container. Very likely the first time that we're called to respond to it, it'll be a warning. Hey, you can't have that out here, either go back into the designated area or dump it out. If the problem persists, tickets will be issued, and if it gets to that point, to the level of needing to make an arrest, we will. After that, all we're looking at is basically what we've got to come across with is, or our biggest problem is going to be the idea of whether an event is open to the public or whether an event is private. Obviously, if you rent out the park and you get a permit for your family, your friends to celebrate something, to make some sort of party or have some sort of party there, that's a private event, right? So if somebody's there that's not supposed to be there, we can deal with that. If the event that has the park rented out or has the permit for it, if that is perceived as open to the public, if it's, say, like, for example, like a party in the park, and it's announced throughout social media, it's announced on TV, anything like that, commercials, hey, come join us, party in the park, got all these things going on, that's where we're gonna have issues, especially with, hey, this person's not part of this party. That person's perceiving that they're at a public event. They may not be following the rules of the public event. We'll have to come deal with that as we can. So as far as that's concerned, that's pretty much our stance on it. If you have any questions, I have left a stack of cards at every table. The preferred method of contact is email. Shoot me an email, put in the subject line that it's something to do with the park or question in question in reference to anything. Just make sure that you make it clear what you're asking, and I'll get back to you in as timely a manner as I can. We have a lot going on, especially for training for our officers right now, so it may take me a couple of days to get back to you. But if you do have a question, especially if it's something specific to the park or something specific to the department, feel free, shoot me an email off one of those cards, and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. Anybody have any quick questions while they're finishing getting set up, or anything that you want to know how we're going to...
Real quick, your first statistic was 28 calls.
28 calls for service that actually ended in some sort of paperwork for us, whether it be an arrest, a ticket, a report.
And what time frame was that?
In 2 years, since January 1st of 2022.
So in 2 years, you had 28 calls that resulted in an arrest.
Not necessarily an arrest, in a report, an arrest, or there's one call in here, we classify it as an aided case. It's when someone needs our help. It's not a criminal offense or anything like that, it's just somebody needs our help and we come to respond.
Quick follow-up on that. How does that stack up against the other parks?
I honestly don't have that information right now. If you shoot me an email, I'll be happy to get it for you. There's, obviously there's quite a few parks in Norwood, and I would have to pull the stats for all those parks and compare them. Go ahead.
Real quick, so when you say you patrol, does that mean you just drive up the street and look over, or do you actually get out and walk the grounds of the park?
It varies at the time of day. So some officers will drive by real slow. They'll pull up, park on the curb there, and watch the park for a little bit. Some officers will get out. If it's a directed patrol, something that we have put out as, hey, we want you to go check on this, they'll go, they'll check on it, they'll either get out, they'll walk around if they have to. If it's a complaint where it doesn't require you to walk up to the park, if it's just something like, hey, we've had issues with people sitting on the stoop, on the steps there drinking, drive by, see if you see anybody, that kind of thing. So it really varies based on the situation, but I mean, it's a little bit of everything. A lot of the parks we'll drive down, we'll sit in those parks and just kind of hang out for a little bit, see what's going on. Some of them will drive through, some of them will walk through, some of them we'll just pull down and just kind of shoot the breeze with the people in there just to make sure that everybody knows that we're there and everybody knows that we're watching. Anything
I
else?
want to say, I always appreciate that. A lot of times I'm at the park with just little kids, and I always appreciate that you guys are very often visible, and so just thank you very much for doing that.
You're welcome. And like I said, it's one of those things that when you get here, your supervisors, your training officers, everybody, they tell you right away, you got to get in the parks, you got to make sure that things are going well. So we try our best with it, and like I said, we've made a effort with, especially with Victory Park, just a tremendous effort to try and clean that up a little bit, because we know that there are some, some of our frequent flyers, or, just some of the people that we deal with on a regular basis, that they like to try and hide in there, hang out in there, and we do the best we can to make sure that in the letter of law, we can make sure that we make that park as safe for everybody as we can. Does anybody have anything else? No? Cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello. So my PowerPoint presentation is fairly boring. It only has some bar charts, and because the Wi-Fi is not working, I'm just going to go through it by talking through it. So first of all, this is just a survey I did by myself. I paid for SurveyMonkey. It was about $100 a month, so I ended up spending about $1,000 just because it's easier to automate that way. Really, my impetus was that I think we need a long-term plan to update and improve our parks. So the first step of that is public input. So I tried to design a survey based on similar cities' plans, and I had that open from September to November of 2022. I've done the SurveyMonkey, like I said. It's got 10 questions. Posted on Facebook, city website, and I also went around and put flyers up at each of the parks with a QR code. I included some common ideas for park improvements as well as space for comments, and I ended up, after all of the various spam, and one person just put the word "but" into the comments, which I thought was perhaps not the most constructive. I took those out, and so I had 173 actual respondents. The survey questions were pretty basic, like, of all of our parks, which 3 do you feel need the most improvements? Which park have you visited the most over the last 12 months? What 4 amenities and facilities are most important to your household? What's your age? What barriers prevent you from visiting Norwood's parks? Do you have children under 12? Just kind of some general stuff about some demographics as well. I did 10 questions because that feels like a good number that people actually, finish the survey and not just give up halfway through. So the first question was just, how many of the parks have you guys used? So people indicated that they had used Burwood, Doral, Linder, Millcrest, Victory, and Waterworks the most, which is great. The other ones were decreasing in frequency of use. Of all our parks, which 3 do you feel need the most improvements? Number 1 was Victory Park. Number 2 was Burwood Park. And number 3 was Millcrest Park. And I know it's Upper and Lower Millcrest. I just put it as one. It seemed silly to delineate it. Which park have you visited the most? Most people said Millcrest, Waterworks, and Burwood. Which 4 amenities are most important to your household? Playgrounds were number 1, along with bathroom access being something that's important. Walking paths, nature trails, and picnic tables and benches were up there too. I also included stuff like dog parks, basketball courts, baseball, and softball fields. I can give this to anyone who wants it. It's basically, I'm just going through a bunch of bar graphs. It's very fascinating, what can I say? I also asked about the recreation. At that time in 2022, the rec department was just getting started, so about half of the people had done rec department programs, the other half had not. Things that people wanted to see were, of course, walking, hiking trails. People said they liked that at Luna Park, but they missed that at other parks. They really thought a splash pad would be good either at Waterworks, where there's already a pool, or at another park. And natural playscape was another big thing. That's kind of a big thing for younger kids. They like to climb around logs and stuff. So the demographic people were between 20 and 54. Most of them had young kids. So it was about 70% of them had under 12 living in their household. So I think that's for a lot of people. And then what do you from using the parks? Light up about a lot of them is the play equipment, and I feel dangerous, and I don't feel like kids can be on there. It's rusted out. It's old-fashioned. There's not really an inviting feel. There's a nice stuff, but it's kind of secret different parks, and there's a feeling that some of the parks are not safe. There's the idea that there's people sitting around, they're not there for parks out there, they're for other things, especially at more sequestered parks like Norwood and also at Victory, because right there in the middle, there's a lot of people that come through and sit there at the benches, and kind of, it feels awkward to bring your kids there when there's a couple guys just drinking 40s from their brown paper bags. So, with that, I asked about some other parks that people like. Everyone says stuff like Alt Park, Washington Park, French Park. They like the trails at French Park. Washington Park, they like the playground, the splash pad. Like the differences in programming. It was pretty unanimous with that. Like Ludlow Memorial Park has a recently upgraded ballpark and playground. So kind of the sense I got was people wanted upgraded stuff. And people want more stuff to do at the parks. A lack of programming at the parks was also something that was often mentioned. And again, this was in 2022. This is before the rec had a lot of the programs going. So now there's a little more going on, but some of the parks still don't have like any leagues or anything that kids can go to. So then I had my recommendations, and this is just based on the top 3 kind of parks that people thought they wanted to see stuff with. Number 1 was just Victory Park, removing the old playground equipment and kind of replacing it with something newer. The playground equipment right there is kind of rusty on the bottom. If you've had kids there, you could be like, watch out for that spot. Swings are nice, but the playground equipment's a little old. So having that. Bathroom access is really important. That's kind of complicated since it's on the bus line. There's a lot of people that go there, and right now the bathrooms are locked up, which is kind of like, you kind of have to, because people are going to go in there, unfortunately, and do stuff they shouldn't. So my idea was maybe we'd have porta potties there. That was kind of nixed by the administration, understandably, just trying to throw it out, figure out some way to get bathroom access there for kids. And people thought the lawn was great for events, but it's kind of underused, so having more events at the lawn was something that I thought would be good. And Berwood Park, removing the old playground equipment, which I'm interested in adding fencing to enclose the west half of the park for like, kind of make it like a dog area where people can run around with their dogs, which they already do. And then with Millcrest, I really think a trail around the perimeter of the park would be nice. Something that is like a mixed access, bike, walk, roll, etc. I'd really love to see that old rail line eventually connect to Wasson Way. That is a bigger issue because Norfolk and Southern would have to sell us that. And they're Norfolk and Southern. So, anyway. Area by the middle west, it's bad. You all know that. So that's kind of what I did, and this was just me as a person, not as someone who has any expertise in this, but I wanted to at least get some baseline. I'd still love to get more input. I know that anything that I do, anywhere I put it out, not everyone's going to see the survey. So I don't want it to be like, oh, this is all we need, this is all the information we need, and this is what we're going to base everything on. Figured it was just a baseline, and you could keep doing stuff like this, get more information, put the survey back out. I can start paying for SurveyMonkey again. I kind of stopped paying once I realized I was going to bring another life into the world, and I needed that money for it. So, yeah, that is kind of what I did. Hopefully, if you want to ask a question, or if you want to ask any questions, I'd love to answer them. I'm going to go Rodney, and then you, sir. Okay? Oh, sorry. Yes.
Oh, me first?
Yeah, I don't know.
When people apply, do they have to be a Norwood citizen
Apply?
to use the park?
No, you don't have to be a Norwood citizen to get a permit to use a shelter, from what I understand. Gabby, is that true?
Correct.
Okay.
I know when they swapped the land across from the Lincoln Airport with Lower Millcrest, Cincinnati had the Norwood agree that we had to allow Cincinnati residents to use it also. Mm-hmm. But I didn't think we had to do that with any of the other parks.
Yeah, that's something, I believe that's the case. You don't have to have a 45212 area code to rent any shelters in the parks.
Is it going to be like the yard sales where you're limited to how many times you can?
That's something that would be more of a Gabby question. And people can already rent the shelters. That's something that already happens. So I assume that if they're renting it every weekend, that's something that would be noticed, and you could put a stop on that. Anytime you want to issue a permit, you don't have required. If you recognize the name or you're like, oh, this person's bad news, you can just say, no, thank you, let me know, thank you. Hope that makes sense.
Does it have to be a person or can an organization?
Yeah, an organization can do it. Like, I know that there was some organization that rented the Millcrest Park for like, some church
Rain
event.
barrels.
Yeah, rain
barrels at Minecraft.
Yeah, so you can rent it as an organization or as an individual.
About the upper mill, I think of Millcrest lower, middle, and upper Millcrest.
Yeah, and I
Middle,
think of it the same way, but some people, where they put middle versus where they put upper
Yeah.
can differ. So I'm thinking of the really big shelter that you get off on Hopkins.
but it's just a note. Close to the middle Millcrest, close to the bridge, there's a homeless tent there.
Oh, there is?
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
That'd be good to have someone.
It's hard to get into. I mean, following.
Sorry, I can, I want to answer this.
I just wanted to answer that real quick.
Okay.
If you are running into people experiencing homelessness, I highly recommend you report it on the Street Reach app. I put up in between those two idea charts, a list of community resources, one of which is Street Reach, which connects you with strategies to prevent homelessness. And the reason that's so important is because a lot of the folks already are connected with services, and so we don't just want to move them without having them connected to their resource. And so you can let them know, it's sort of like see, click, fix, if you will. You put in as much information as you can, and then it gets connected to the right organization. So, Street Reach.
Street Reach.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right, sorry, yes, sir.
You talked about the parks and more things need to be done in the park and stuff. My question to you is, as council people, have you done anything to revitalize our parks? I grew up here, every park had a shelter house, and had two playground attendants, park gardens, whatever, male and a female. You know, since then, Mayor Hochbein, they tore down the shelters, and now there's really nothing there to do. As council people, have we done anything to talk about Marsh Park? You didn't have anything on Marsh Park. I go by there a lot. For 10 years, that was the only park in the city that had a basketball hoop. Because Mayor Williams had them all took down, except Marsh Park. He didn't know about Marsh Park. There's kids playing there all the time. But we need to put the shelters back in there and bring back the guards to the parks. I mean, we can have all the parks and green spaces we want. If there's nobody there to create an event on a daily basis or anything, they're not going to go. I mean, here's where they're going to go.
Yeah.
Right here, up in the room on their iPad.
Can I speak as a family member? When we moved, we had that same observation, that same problem, that same concern. But I know council people before and current have done a really great job, like revitalizing the parks. The old playground equipment in Burwood is gone now, which makes a nice green space that we can play in. That we never went there because it was so.
But if there was a shelter and
there is
people there.
Yeah, there's a shelter there now. I'm just saying it's improved.
I mean, my son's 46 years old, and he went to the park.
Yeah, I'm just saying it is getting better. Hunter Park has an amazing community garden now. It is. Yeah, seriously, no. I mean, yeah, it's like I know there's a lot of things that are changing that
So
I might not have noticed.
there's people that basically feel with the parks budget as is and the recreation budget as is, we try to include people, get people to go to the parks by encouraging library events there, have held informational sessions about milkweed, monarch butterflies, native plant ID. I want to continue to do that this summer. And I'd also love if any of you all or anyone that you know wants to do those type of events, talk to me or to Mr. Gabbard, and especially like any sort of street festivals near the parks too. That'll get people there. And having new playground equipment will get more kids there. More people are there, less people doing kind of shady stuff. It's a net benefit for everyone. Yes.
So, full disclosure, I'm Emily Sutton.
Hi, Justin.
But
Like, I have observed, from the background, the efforts of a lot of these council people, and obviously, I'm gonna have a biased opinion, but they really do want to do exactly what you're talking about, getting shelter houses, getting activities, getting playground equipment. But all that stuff takes money, and there's a very limited budget that they have to work with. And they are desperate for anybody that is able to connect us with sources of money. If you know people that are, donating money or issuing grants, I know Emily spends pretty much any free time looking up for federal and state grants for money that she can use for Norwood, some of which was used for like playground equipment and stuff. And, shelter houses are an extension of that. So they are absolutely doing that. The issue as always is that we have limited funds, and anything that you can do to help contribute to that, whether it's encouraging people to donate or doing organizations like the 5K, which has raised a bunch of money for the city and equipment. I think they did some basketball court stuff too.
Yeah, I was gonna say the waterworks, ball courts are
Here's a specific question, Mr. Paul, because you asked what council is doing, and I can tell you what council is doing. Mrs. Branson and I, she predominantly worked on a multi-million-dollar grant for park equipment. We've talked about that on council a couple times. People don't seem to pay attention to that. Over $2 million looking for park equipment for our parks. We also worked on a Millcrest Connector grant, which is to have a walking path around Millcrest. We've had cleanup events in the parks. We've had plantings in the park. That's duplicate too. Street planting. What else have we done?
Trees and daffodils.
I was gonna say,
my favorite thing is Shakespeare.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff that the rec is doing.
It was awesome.
So the council's doing a whole lot of stuff, and some of it you see, and some of it you don't see. You don't see Emily and I texting at 12:30 at night about where can we get that particular number. But those are things that are happening as well.
Yeah, I really do, I want to do anything that we can to get people in the parks. And I love them. When we have stuff like Off-Bike Market and music on Mills and Hispanic Heritage Festival in the park, that brings people too.
International Art Show.
International Art Show, because I was part of it once, and then last year I was too busy. So, yes, Mr. Atwood.
I think, growing up in Norwood and listening to Mr. Paul speak, and then hearing everybody's suggestions, one part that we're missing is that kid who's not going to the park with his parents till he's gone out of his home. That's where we lose kids. Right. People talk about the basketball courts and things. I grew up when the basketball courts weren't a good thing. I know 3 guys who I went to school with are dead because of their connections at the basketball courts. I just want everybody to know there's histories that happen, and lots of you don't know those histories, and there's pain points. Most people in here, I think, have younger kids. We do have some in the middle. I look at my kids, everything you're talking about, they can't use.
Right.
We gotta, since we're talking about the parks, there's not a good solution that we're talking about right now. We need to focus on how we can support those kids, not families we need to go after families, I'm not saying that. But there's those kids who don't, if you go to Norwood schools, people don't want to go to the middle school because that's when kids are figuring themselves out. We need to support those kids through the rec and through our parks.
Yeah, and I think having great programs at the rec and having more programs at parks and at other public spaces is only a net good for us. Yes.
I just want to provide a little bit of insight in terms of the ask that we're making. All these ideas about having playground attendants, having bathroom attendants, having someone who's running programming for the parks are fantastic. I do that for a living. I work for 3CDC, who manages the 4 civic spaces downtown and then over the Rhine for Cincinnati. So I oversee a team of bathroom attendants. I work with an events team who does the programming on our civic spaces. All of it is free, all of it is accessible. Obviously, I'm in massive support of us doing that in Norwood, but I want to make it clear that my team is 300 people. I have a payroll that is in the multi-million dollars, And Norwood does not have the funds to maintain that infrastructure. It's a fantastic idea. We have a need for that in Norwood, and that's for 4 civic spaces. And 2 of those 4 civic spaces, 2 spaces that have 7-day-a-week programming, and it takes multiple hundreds of people to make that happen. I personally swear to have 10 bathroom attendants in order to staff our bath all day. Not as easy as people to keep, and it's not easy as having one someone say, I'm going to there. It's a huge undertaking, and Norwood has a need for that 100%. I would love to see that happen, but that money has to come. A huge infrastructure to maintain, and that's why these parks that people were saying, these are the parks good, Park, Washington Park, those are all city parks. The city does not operate those parks. Those have separate nonprofit entities that run and maintain those parks because it's a huge undertaking. And I would love to see that happen in Norwood, but I think there's this misconception that it would be as easy as hiring a small handful of people who are part-time employees. And there is in fact an entire industry of organizations who just do that. And they're huge. So I would love to see that happen. Obviously, I get paid to do that for a living. I'm very passionate and driven about engaging civic spaces and having places for our community to come together. And I think that everything should be as accessible as possible and should be as age inclusive as possible. I just want to make sure that there's not this idea that it would be this as easy as hiring some bathroom attendants.
There's also decades of deferred maintenance that we're trying to catch up on. It's not just that the playground equipment is old, it's that the bathrooms are old. The bathrooms, the parking lots, all of these are huge capital investment issues that we don't, because we invest so much in so many other places in the city, we have to make choices about what we can and can't do. I want desperately for there to be playground attendance. I think it would be awesome. I want there to be events at parks, at every park, every week. I don't physically have the time to do it. I know Mr. Gabbard does the best, and his department does the best they can, especially at Waterworks. It's a lot easier for pools and natural draw. Yes.
That's part of why I'm here is I think Victory Park is just absolutely an amazing opportunity because we have so many parks, which I do think is really advantageous. We like going to the little parks, but on those ideas of what it takes to fund and program, I think Victory Park being in the very center of our city and with the historic market building, the rec center being right close, the middle school and the high school, all of that is so centrally located. If we can concentrate our resources in making one of our central park amazing and a holistic approach, so it's ages and stages where like it's a place that kids want to go, teens, preteens want to walk to in our walkable district to be able to get their safety, which is part of that pedestrian plan, that pedestrian infrastructure that we want to focus on. If we can get people to be able to walk there safely after school, and then also people are there after work or on a break for work, they're eating a snack, eating their lunch, so that's professionals, extra eyes, and then also there's some families who are coming after school, or some people with families who are homeschooled or not in school yet. All of those people together create community. I mean, you could have, and we've got a senior coordinator now with this, our community center, which is so awesome. She could be having programming going on. This can be as simple as checkerboards there for people, for older people to be able to be getting out and socializing. This is such a crucial time in our world right now that people are on phones. Sorry, I'm really. No. This can happen.
Randomly, the mayor was like,
I know.
We need to have checkerboards and passwords there. I'm like, oh, yes, sorry, ma'am.
I just wanted to kind of come back to, we're talking about Victory Memorial Park specifically.
Right.
And I guess I'm just getting a disconnect because we heard from Lieutenant, right into your last name, Lieutenant, that, it does sound like the Norwood Police Department is doing a really good job. 2 years, 28 calls in 2 years that resulted in paperwork. Mm-hmm. Sounds reasonable to me, and I 100% agree that space should be a vibrant, active park. I don't know anybody in this room who would disagree with that. Where I have a problem, and we've talked about it, it's been a hot topic at council the past few meetings, I don't see a need for alcohol to be a part of that. So specifically at Victory Memorial Park. And full disclosure, I've been to Washington Park, we're big FC Cincinnati fans. We go down, we enjoy a drink before a game. It's a fun space. It's a great opportunity, but it's also not a memorial park. So, I mean, there is a difference there. So I just wanted to kind of help me understand, we've heard so much about the need to allow alcohol to help kind of revitalize that park, to have alcohol permits, that is essential to that. But based on what we heard earlier, it doesn't sound like, the fact, we heard so much about it's a dangerous space, there's so much awful things going on there, and I'm not disagreeing that happens, but it's just not computing to me.
So for me,
Either it's not that bad or it is.
it is not essential, but what we're trying to do is to open it up to all sorts of events. Some of those can include alcohol, and some of them can't. If we want, what a lot of cities do to earn money, to revitalize parks and get money for parks, is to try to attract events like wedding receptions, like birthday parties or barbecues, and a lot of times those people want to have alcohol. For me, I'm just trying to make it so any kind of event could happen there, whether there's alcohol or not. That is my thesis. That's why Mr. Gabbard asked me to introduce this to council and to make it even all over across all the parks, so that no matter where people want to have their event, they can have the same rules everywhere. That was my initial thing. This was back in September.
So, thank you. First and foremost, let me just commend the organizers to bring folk together tonight to at least discuss the parks. However, I'm so glad that she mentioned what she mentioned, and not to belittle anyone else's schedule, but I came here specifically tonight in hopes and prayer that we would actually have more dialogue about what's been bothering folks as it relates to the park. But yet it's here in the last 5 minutes of the closing of the meeting that...
I tried to go fast.
No, not you. I'm just saying the timeline and the structure of the meeting. And so, again, I applaud all of you for putting this together, and I'm glad that I did come to hear different things. But at the end of the day, I know when we were doing hearing every perspective, when we talk about community engagement, it's nice when a handful of folks that probably have similar mindsets, and no offense to any of you here, but people think differently. And unless you bring people together that have different ideologies, different ways of living, different thoughts, when you have a meeting, I mean, I've done community engagement from Philadelphia.
I appreciate your perspective though, but I would say that we will, I guess what we can do is wrap up formal stuff, but still hang out to have discussions.
You didn't let me finish.
I'm sorry. I just,
So we didn't talk about what I thought the meeting was about to get the community engagement. My question is, relating to the meeting that we had in City Hall, is there a particular organization that brought, a nonprofit organization in the city, that brought this to the table, that we would be talking about Victory Memorial having alcohol or not? Is there a specific name of a specific nonprofit organization? And I believe the residents of this community have a right to know.
There's not.
I'm just asking a question.
It was asked and answered.
It was what?
It was asked and answered at council. This was brought to the Parks Committee by Mr. Gabbard.
I have the text messages from him since he started texting me about this back in November. He emailed about it in September. We talked here on the ramp, and then in November, after the election was over, I was like, okay, finally I've got some headspace, we can get this introduced.
And I appreciate you answering that, because there's all kinds of things going on and out in the air.
Respectfully, we did mention it, I believe, twice, maybe 3 times at
I've mentioned
council.
it every meeting.
So just with all due respect, and Gabby will tell you, I love that man, and he and I have a wonderful relationship. I've never heard Gabby's name mentioned once, Because had I heard it, I would have gone to my dear friend and said, hey, can you explain, can you share a little bit more with me?
So
He's-
respectfully, sir, we did do that at council, and I'm trying to pay attention to the time, and actually it's time for Mr. Gabbard, if you could come up and
Okay,
talk
that's right,
about.
we'll discuss.
And again, I want to reinforce, this is
we'll
not
discuss.
the last conversation we are having. We will be having plenty of conversations.
Before you take a vote at council,
Let's vote
before
on-
you have the third reading at council, you'll have more of these.
No, if you'd like to talk about alcohol, that's different. This meeting is about for Victory Park overall, which I was pretty explicit about.
Yeah. So, Mr. Gabbard, if you'd like to come up.
Hey, give the same birthday.
Do add state birthday.
Different year.
All right, I'm Gabby, I'm the Director of Recreation, and I guess I'm the bad guy. No, I'll take the heat. I've been seeing everybody's name, every organization, all these kind of things getting thrown under the bus, and I'm the one that started the whole thing. I'm man enough to say that. But here's what the thing was. We were starting to do more and more functions and programming in our parks. So, as I spoke with Noah, our safety service director, he asked me, are we clear on alcohol in the parks? And I said, that's actually a pretty good question. As far as I know, I was under the understanding if you got a park permit, you were able to. So I went to the law department and I asked them to research and see what the ordinances were as far as they go pertaining to alcohol in the parks. Come to find out, we've been doing it all wrong. Lower Millcrest or Middle Millcrest, is probably called the Big Shelter, and Fenwick were the only ones that you were permitted to have alcohol in, and that was beer only. No other things. So, but since then, we've built a shelter at Upper Millcrest. We've enhanced shelters at Fenwick, at Hunter, at Burwood, all these places where people are requesting permits for parties, even receptions, all kinds of events that they're having. And so I came to council, I came to Emily, and I said, hey, I talked to the law department, we need to change the ordinance to allow, to give us direction on alcohol in the parks. We were looking at it as just across the board kind of thing. I wasn't naming any particular park. I wasn't eliminating, just to be fair, I wasn't eliminating. I never thought anything. At the time, and still yet, I think that we've probably issued 10, when I asked Tanya today, we've probably issued 10 permits for the lawn part of Victory Park. And those were mostly the market and the art show. Speaking of alcohol, ironically, AA, a group that had a big event there last year in the park. And we've never really had any other permits that we do. So we don't issue a lot of permits there. That's because there's not a lot to offer there. All you do is really have playground equipment. And that's it. There is a gazebo. But I mean, if you're looking to have a party, that's really not a prime spot to have a party. So that's why we don't do a lot of permits there. But other than that, we were just looking to make sure that our permits and that we issue were legal and making sure that we're doing all that. And so that's why I came to council for that. So if I'm a bad guy for doing it, yes, sir.
One clarification. Because the ordinance was written, Victory Park had a portion carved out specifically, and Linder Park was specifically left off the ordinance. The law director said it was because they couldn't do research because it's a Cincinnati property. But when the ordinance was originally written, they could have done the research because they had to do the research for the curfew. So why is there a disparity? Why is Linder Park set aside?
That's
Why wasn't it originally included? Because you and I know, you used to have wedding receptions down there. You used to have alcohol down there.
At Linder?
At Linder.
At Linder, yes. So now we don't do the house at all. The house never gets rented, only the small shelter. But as far as to answer your question, I can't answer that. Thank God I'm on this side of that. I'm not on that side anymore. And that's because they handle the ordinances. I don't do the ordinance part.
I can say that the law department said since Linder is in City of Cincinnati, we cannot make any laws regarding alcohol use, yea or nay. The curfew is kind of a thing that is the same as Cincinnati's here. I didn't really think about the curfew at all, honestly.
So you're saying we do have a statement from the law director that you do have that. They did state we cannot have that property have alcohol at Linder Park because Cincinnati has alcohol at their park. But for some reason, we can't have Linder Park have.
I mean, what we can't do is we cannot make a law about it. From what I understand, and frankly, it's something that maybe you can email Mr. Moore about it. I've only talked to him in person, so I don't have anything in writing. And it was something, because the focus shifted to Victory Park, I didn't really even think about Linder Park. I know it's outside of Norwood, and that was like, I don't know what kind of administer it, so I didn't really know how that worked legally. So I apologize. I wish I had a better answer, but I would love to ask Mr. Moore to get more clarity about Linder Park. That's all. I just figured again, I don't have anything in writing from him. I just asked him about it after council because I was curious as well.
Yes, Mr.
Maybe if I came to you, said that I want to rent Victory Park and have a drink and drown, what would you say?
I would say if we knew that that's what your purpose of thing would be, then I permit. We're all about family. If we think that there's going to be problems, we just won't permit.
Okay, so as long as it's not people drinking to a point, it's just people drinking what may happen.
Right.
That's the deterrent.
So our thing is a lot of people like to bring their cooler and have some beers or whatever like that. And so that's, if that's what your family does, then, we're okay with that. But if you get out of hand, you won't get rented to again. And, these guys are going to be, taking care of some issues as well.
Yeah, am I correct?
If I could just say one. From day one, I've made my opposition to this ordinance quite public, actually. I firmly believe there's nothing in that park. I think that you can talk about it to be a family. Put some people together, heads together, to put splash pad. Eric brought it up years ago, and I understand it was brought up earlier. But you that in, upgrade the playground. The market house would be an exceptional place. People, pool tables, all kinds of things could happen there. The sign says Victory Memorial Park, and I cannot get away from thinking. I go up there and I look at that white marble monument, and I see the names of those folks. The very gentleman, the First Lieutenant Leland F. Barnett, World War I, he, in the face of unbelievable violence, he single-handedly accomplished saving a lot of folks. Our American Legion post was named after him for that very reason. That happened in 1918 in France. 1918 in France. He was 24 years old and gave his life for his men. These are the kind of names that are up on that memorial, and people that are laying in the ground today for the freedom and whatever that we enjoy here today. I think that tells the whole story, and I pray that when everybody looks at everything, they realize that there's better venues for alcohol in Norwood City Park. We're not against alcohol in all city parks. We're against alcohol in Victory Memorial Park. That's it.
And let me be clear, as the Director of Recreation, we don't have a stance on this yea or nay. If council says they don't want it in there, but all the rest are okay, that's what we'll do. We just need an ordinance to direct us on how to do the permits. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make sure I understood. So the impetus behind a lot of this was so that you had a uniform policy across all of the parks, that over the years, a lot of weird interacting rulings had happened and there was not really legal clarity on what you could and could not do. And so the idea was to have this all in alignment, and that if you wanted to have alcohol in a park, you had to get a permit. And then if you got that permit, then, you know, the understanding
It's
is
always been that if you wanted alcohol, you had to have a permit.
Right, so this
That's where
isn't-
we have, that's our biggest issue, is people in our parks having parties that don't have permits.
Right.
And what can we do?
And
We
so this-
can't do anything.
My understanding was that this was a way to get this all in, you know, alignment and make enforcement more straightforward and easy. That across all the parks, if you want to have alcohol, you have to have a permit. And then if you cause problems, then you will be just denied a permit, and then you will be ejected if you're there with alcohol. So I thought that was
Linder
a,
Park. It's not all parks. Cut out Linder Park, that's our park.
it's not our park. Legally speaking, as I understand it, it's not our park. Like, we administer it, but it's just,
No,
we
that's
can't
our
make
park.
any legal.
Cincinnati, again, that's something the water department.
That's our park.
You issue permits for Linder though, right? Not alcohol.
Yes,
You
right.
like to
Well,
have something at Linder.
We do, there's another step. It's not like issuing a regular park.
But
We have to
it
call
falls under
Linder, we have to
Norwood
call
Rec.
Eddie at Linder and make sure we get his permission first, and then we can put it on
But
the
people
books.
come to
But-
Norwood Rec
Yes,
to get
Yes.
permission to use Linder Park.
yes,
So there's already a distinction for at least one park.
yes.
Can I just say
Yes.
one thing? Something that you said struck me. You said we don't want a bunch of people drunk at that park because it's the center of our city.
I
You know,
didn't say that.
people-
I don't want your people drunk in any
Well,
of
no,
our.
but you said, and you said it's right in the middle of our city, and you said we don't want people. You did say that just a few minutes ago. You said you didn't want a lot of.
Someone else said-
Yeah, I think it's somebody else, but yeah.
I don't think you did that. But it's the main, you know, everybody drives down that street, and it's the main thing right there. We don't want a bunch of people there drinking and getting drunk, and, you know, that's a busy road. You don't want them going out in the street. It's just, it would
I
be.
mean, so we do, and I totally agree with what several people said. We want to figure out how to activate this park. I had cameras put on the bathroom, little building.
I bet that was scary.
2 days, and we were finding stuff. You would not believe what we catch on that happens in that park. It's disgusting. But, you know, we try to be very diligent on how we do these things. And we keep track. If somebody destroys, if somebody doesn't clean up and stuff like that, you're done. You're not getting another permit. Go somewhere else. Go to Cincinnati or whatever. Sam?
I'm gonna answer your question for Gabby. This is just to address something that's come up. Public intoxication is illegal, period. Whether you have a permit for an event, whether you're in a bar that's legally serving you alcohol, whether you're in your friend's front yard, it is illegal to be drunk in public. As a former bartender, if I thought you were intoxicated, it's illegal for me to serve you alcohol. That's why people get cut off at bars. It is illegal to be drunk in a park, to be intoxicated in a park, whether you have an event permit or not, whether alcohol sales are legal or not. You cannot be drunken in a public place. That's a law. That's not up for debate.
We have had, there's been events on Mills Avenue last year, 3 or 4 times, beer gardens in Mills Avenue, the streets. And the police have patrolled. It's been pretty nice, no issues that I have heard of with those events. Now, people coming after the event, can't say that, but we have already had events with alcohol right next to the park with no issues. We have kids, dogs, families, older people, younger people. It's really nice.
Gabby,
Yes.
How hard is it to say you can have, like, just how hard is it for you to say yes or no to somebody if they are grabbing a permit for that particular park? Like, say I want to rent two parks, right? One for Victory, one for,
We don't even call it Victory, we call it the lawn, because we want there to be a distinction. And I don't care what we do as far as alcohol and alcohol. Even then, if we have an event up there, a family event, I don't want as much as a bouncy house on the what that'd be the east side of that pathway. Nothing is to go on that side of that pathway. You know, so whatever family event, I don't care what kind of event, nothing is to be over that side. Everything needs to be on the lawn side.
Right, so the lawn.
Yes.
So you can easily say yes or no to that, easily. So what goes to writing the law? Can't you just put a description in there saying the lawn part of can't have alcohol?
That's kind of like saying no peeing in this side of the pool.
But Mike, in clarity, it is stated in the ordinance that they're getting ready to pass, they have that stated out. They have the park segregated.
We don't want anything at all in the memorial, including alcohol. We don't want any events, people to be treading on the memorial, doing anything. So my understanding when Gabby introduced this is he's been working on getting events to the lawn. My thought was, okay, let's make sure that we don't disrespect the memorial, we don't make it so people can get anywhere near there and trample anything. And my understanding was that was kind of a separate thing, but, and I apologize if that's.
So not to cut anybody else off, but I appreciate that clarity. Just that alone clears up some of the disparity that.
Thank you. I think.
Wait, hold on. I've waited. I'm going to just be brief. The bottom line is, so you're separating, Gabby, there's a distinction from the lawn from the memorial portion. So you're saying the memorial portion is still a sanctuary, and you'd like to say, not a bounce house, not anything, not just the issue of alcohol.
Yeah, that was.
I think for a lot of people that I've talked to, that was not made clear. And that's why the opposition was there, because.
I appreciate that, yes.
You're distincting that, making that distinction. And that, for me, is very much appreciated.
Okay, thank you, but let me get to the next person, but I would love to talk about.
Listen, I respect that, but if you're not cutting off anybody else, do not do that tonight.
You just started talking.
But I was saying.
I'm going to interrupt for just 1 second.
You didn't interrupt anybody else, Susan. So with all due respect, no, not well, I will close, but with all due respect.
Please close.
Sorry, don't. Sorry. I didn't mean to be interrupting. I'm sorry about that.
Listen. Treat me the same way you treat anybody else, or keep your mouth closed.
Respectfully, sir.
Respectfully, no. Several
I'm
other people have been able to talk.
I'm trying to gather.
Said nothing to them, and I'm complimenting.
That's fantastic.
I'm complimenting because I came for one reason, and now it's been made clear to me. And I'm saying, thank you for that clarity.
I just want to interrupt before people were leaving, that they could have an opportunity to write on the idea board before they left.
I was just saying that people were leaving, and I wanted to make sure that you did that.
And everybody is volunteer. Everybody, like the historical department.
I respect that. I respect that.
So would Mr. Gabbard like to finish talking about what Birmingham Park, or are we going to wrap up the meeting?
Currently, we're looking at doing some family things. We're looking at adding some tables, like the small little four-sided, smaller tables. That would be like a checkerboard table or chess table. So we're looking at adding 4 of those. Over by the swing set, there's a big, it's about 12 by 12 concrete thing that's going to get redone. That's going to be kind of like a big checkerboard, what I'm told. And then also the shuffleboard courts are getting redone. Yes?
So back in the pool, I used to go to the pool every day when I was in summer and middle school and younger. I was always at the pool. When did that pool, or that area, the lawn now, when was that written in the law that it was separated from the memorial park?
That's a historical thing.
Is it written in the law?
Is the pool closed? Is that what you asked?
Well, no, I'm just saying, once they filled in the pool, when they separate, when did that separation happen?
So, for me, it's just that Mr. Gavin talked about it as separate. My assumption was, okay, the memorial, we have one part of the park dedicated to memorial, the other part has always been like a pool and swings and stuff, so typically when you issue permits also, you have a shelter house that's separate than the playground, you're not gonna go and take beers there. So my mind was like, okay, well, the lawn's kind of like the area, and then the memorial is over here, and we, never the twain shall meet. But yeah, you're right, it's still one plat, it's still one
It's still all one park.
Yeah, but like any park, you have areas where some things are allowed, and areas where they are not. Like you don't want to play baseball on the soccer field. I guess you can, weird. I'm sorry, Mr. Beers, did you have a comment? or-
Just for clarification purposes, within the ordinance that has already had 2 readings, they do outline that Victory Park Memorial area means the portion of Victory Park to the southeast of the pathway that curves from Mills Avenue to Montgomery Road, separating the memorial feature from the remainder of the park. Seems
But that's kind of what our attempts to try to be respectful and make sure that people don't disrespect that, while also still allowing stuff in the lawn area. It's not like an official, we're cutting this into 2 parcels or anything, but it's a separation in law to try to make it clear that we don't want people to be crappy, and literally and figuratively. Sorry, yes, Jean.
I'd like to direct this to Mr. Gabbard and to Lieutenant Thomas. I run Off Pike Market. Has there ever been a problem after Off Pike Market has a kids zone up in the park, or after we use the bathrooms and relock them, or Mills Avenue? I'm sure that you have found the park is cleaner than when we got there, because we have a team of people, none of which I've seen here today, helping us. Friday, we come and we clean everything, we sweep, we get up glass, we do our damnedest to really make it clean. The Public Works is there, really trying to mow the lawn, edge, and make everything look nice. But we've never had problems, and we plan on continuing to do that. But the hate and the things that have been attacked and the things that have been said about people who are doing work for free because we want nice things for our community. Shame on you. I can't believe that. All these people just want nice things for our community. I don't even have little kids. My daughter's 20. We are just doing street cleanups and clean up parks and cutting down honeysuckle. The Raricas did that. In Lower Millcrest, we're doing that on our own time because it's important for our community. There's no hidden agendas, nobody's getting payoffs, and it's ludicrous. This could have been easily resolved just by sitting down and being calm. It's a shame it got to this.
I do read all the comments that have been made. So I've been trying to address them as they come up. There's some that are kind of hard to address because they're not true and I can't prove a negative. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to address them as they can. There's been some Freedom of Information Act requests, so I'm trying to get to them as I just got one of them Friday and the other one Monday. I think I resolved that one. So you're welcome as always to email me and call me. Well, maybe not call. It goes to the city hall and then it goes to voicemail and then I don't see it. So sorry. You can email me though. I really do respect the park, the people that are involved in doing stuff. I have spent several sleepless nights trying to do my best to rectify this, and I'm sorry for any offense that I have given.
Just one thing I would like to say.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I don't think Emily Franzen has anything to be upset about. Some people take things one way and some people take it to an extreme.
You have to admit though, some of them have taken it to quite an extreme.
It's gotten ugly.
After I spoke at the last council meeting, I received 2 phone calls at my home from people, I don't know if it's 1 person or 2 persons, both were describing their voice, threatening me for taking a stance on Victory Park. So the only thing I can say is, I hope they try.
I'm very sorry that happens, that's not okay in any world. I am sorry that we have gone way over. As I said at the beginning, this is the first of many conversations. We really do want input and feedback. I would love for everyone to fill these up. I will be gathering them. I'm just going to take them home with me and probably tomorrow start pulling all the information together. If folks still have questions, please feel free to reach out to us, to one of the council members, Ms. Royce, Mrs. Bowling. I think Emily should go home with her baby, but I can stay for a few minutes if you'd like to chat. Oh, and Mrs. Winterbauer hiding in the background. We are very happy to answer questions. There's been a lot of misinformation out there that was pretty evident this evening, and we would like to clear that up. I'd like to be as transparent as possible, which is why we want to have all of this put out. Again, thank you guys for coming in. Thank you for Susan Daniels. Is she still here? Fall asleep in the corner. Poor thing. I owe her an espresso martini, I promised her. Thank you, Mr. Gabbard, Mrs. Franzen for the park survey, and Lieutenant Thomas, thank you again. And have a great evening and drive safe or walk home safely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.